What's going on, everybody? This is your man, Big Stu, Scott Stewart, or Professor Stewart, depending on how you know me. And welcome back to another edition of Dope People, where we highlight dope people that are doing dope things, especially in education. In this episode, we are not letting you down. We are still continuing to bring the heat. Today's guest, Mr. Rheon Gibson, y'all. Mr. Rheon Gibson, welcome to Dope People, brother.
Oh, thank you for having me, sir. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Hey, look, let me tell the people just a little bit about you before we get going. Listen. Mr. Gibson is the author and the creator of the Diz Wiz series, LLC, which is a children's social and emotional learning book series. Mr. Gibson is a motivational speaker, a professional development provider, and a director of students and family services in the great state of Illinois. Mr. Gibson, Diz Wiz series in the building. What's happening, brother? What's happening, man?
Oh, man, a lot of blessings going on. It's a blessing to be here with you today, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely, man. We're going to dig into a little bit more about the work that you do, particularly around this Diz Wiz series, right? You are in education. You are an educator. You are a consummate professional. You come highly recommended to be here on Dope People. But before we get into that, how about we play a round of this or that? Are you familiar with this or that, brother?
Yes, sir.
All right, so here we go. I'm going to give you a couple of options. This is an opportunity for people to know you on a more personal level, right? I give you two choices, this one or that one. You pick the first one that comes to your mind. You don't have to explain why you chose it. We'll go through a number of them, and then we'll move on with our conversation. You good with that?
Sounds good. Sounds like a plan.
All right, let's do it. Let's have some fun, man. White meat or dark meat?
I'm gonna have to go with dark meat.
Okay. Hard shell or soft shell tacos?
I'm gonna have to go hard shell.
Chips and dip or chips and salsa?
We're gonna go chips and salsa.
Okay. Stuffed animals or dolls?
We're gonna go stuffed animals.
Day and night?
That's a good one. I'm gonna go night.
Pancakes or waffles?
Waffles.
Text message or call?
I'm gonna go with call.
Book a movie?
Movie.
Library or museum?
Museum.
Love or money?
Ooh, that's a hard one because I love money. So I'm gonna say love. I'm gonna say love. I'm gonna go with love.
Love. Wow. All right. This is fun, man. You kind of put me on my heels with this, man. You kind of travel by boat or travel by plane?
Oh man. I'm gonna go plane.
All right. Talk or listen?
Listen. Teachers
or parents?
Parents.
Wow. Great job, brother. You came through with the rapid fire responses. That's pretty good. So talk about it. Why did you choose parents over the teachers? And it's not about one being better or worse. It's not that. It's just like, which one resonates with you the most when you are given the choice, right? It's not that you're necessarily picking one or the other. It's just one has more connect. So you said parents.
Yeah. I mean, for one, parents are the most important, or one of the most important stakeholders, because without them, we wouldn't have the students. And, so they bring the students into our environment. It's extraordinarily important that we establish positive relationships with parents, because that's what helps out, the streamlined things in school, so whether it's home behavior, and school behavior being aligned to one another. So that way, there's no discrepancies there. Or if it's, addressing problem solving issues, say you're having an issue in class, you need to talk to your parents. So that way you can have that support at home as well as school. Because in school, you only got like a 40-hour week. That could be undid in a 48-hour weekend if you don't have that home support. So.
Wow. Man, that's phenomenal, man. So you're in education. before we get into that, what kind of student were you, particularly sixth grade through high school? Start about middle school. What kind of grades did you get? What kind of did you get in any trouble? Were you always top of your class and studious? What kind of student were you, Mr. Gibson?
I was a student that's always talking in class. I was a student that's gonna have to be, I hadn't needed that social aspect. I needed that class clown. That's kind of who I was as a student.
Okay.
Academically, I was always strong. You know, but I did have some behaviors growing up as well. Just because you're navigating life and you use the skills that you think are efficient at the time, but as you grow older, you learn better ways to navigate life.
Yeah. Did you always know that you wanted to get into education?
No, not at all. I honestly it was how I would put it is not trying to get religious and nothing, but one of my favorite quotes is coincidences are God's ways of remaining anonymous, and I had a school counselor in high school. College was never talked about in my household. It wasn't something that, so I had no post-graduation plans. And she called me in her office. She was like, "Hey, you got a 3.4 GPA. You're an African American male. You haven't filled out one college application at all. I refuse to let you leave this office unless you fill out one." I gave her every excuse I could to leave that office. All right, just give it to me. I'll bring it back to you tomorrow. She read through right all that. She was a very experienced educator. Made me sit down, filled out the application. It was the only one I ever submitted. I got accepted, and lo
Wow.
and behold, coincidentally, I became a school counselor that had that same impact on others.
Wow. Did you get so you mentioned college was never talked about in your household.
Mhm.
What was the expectation for you, brother?
My dad was went to the army. My mom, she went to college, but then she had me, so she didn't complete. So they was just thinking about getting a job, and going from there. But the great thing about it and the way God works, what I'm saying, is once I was able to go through college and graduate, then I was able to encourage my mom to finish her degree too, and she ended up,
Wow.
and
Wow.
she does some
So she
social
she
work.
finished.
Oh yeah, she finished. She ended up finishing.
Wow. Did
Yes,
you have
sir.
to pay for college? Did you get a scholarship or what?
Oh no, I had to pay for college.
And how was that conversation? You go from nobody even talking about it to you filling out one application, getting accepted. Did you even apply for any scholarships, or you was
I
just
didn't have no idea about
you was
colleges.
just doing the yeah.
She told me to fill out the app. I filled it out. That was that. And next thing you know, I got a letter in the mail saying you accepted. And then we filling out the FAFSA.
Wow. How
Yeah.
did your family respond to you applying and being accepted? Did you tell them that you first applied, or did you just apply and blew it off? Didn't say anything? What was that? What was that like?
That was exactly what happened. I filled out the application, and once I left that office, I went about doing my business. I was all about the social aspect, the ladies, I was working while I was in high school. So I was just focused on money and the social aspect of things. So once I filled out the application, I left. I never talked about it again. Forgot I actually filled it out till about 3 months later. And then I got a letter in the mail, and I'm like, oh, what's this? I opened it up, and I'm like, oh man, and that's when the excitement hit, you know.
Wow. The excitement hit. Man, this is bananas. This is a bananas story. And so, what did you study when you went away to school?
Initially, when I was about to go to college, my senior year, I had a friend that passed away. He
Senior
died
year of high school.
senior year of high school. He passed away, got shot in the head a few blocks away from my house. And that made me want to go to school for sociology, emphasis in criminal justice. The goal was to become a homicide detective, but once I found out you had to be a police officer prior to, I modified those goals and, started looking at something else. So then I was thinking about maybe doing a lawyer. And then when I realized law school is like 25,000 a semester and they don't want you to work your first year, then I was like, oh man, I got to figure out what I'm gonna do. And then lo and behold, I started thinking about, my life, and I thought thinking about the counselor that impacted me. And that's what led me to school counseling.
So you go to school,
Hmm.
you navigate through that, you graduate. What's your first job?
First job in high school or first
Or
job
after graduating college?
after graduating college, I got a job as a paraprofessional at a therapeutic day school. So
Okay.
yeah, those students with like autism and
Uh-huh.
Asperger's, things like that.
Okay. Okay. Oh man. So how did you get into educational leadership, or how did you get to you're a director of family services?
Yeah, student and family services. Well, first as a school counselor, when I was working there, I did a lot of leadership roles.
Okay.
Like I said, I always wanted to have an impact on the community. And when I was working as a school counselor, I forgot. I think it might have been I forgot what case was going on, but it was a huge case that had the America in the uproar. Maybe it was Trayvon Martin, maybe it was prior to that. I'm not sure, but it was a big one like that. And a lot of my students, we had school resource officers in the middle school, and a lot of the students would make like negative comments towards them, say different things towards them.
Okay, so you're in a diverse school. What city are you doing all this work in? Where are you from?
Originally I'm from Texas, moved to Illinois. But a lot of my work experience comes from the DeKalb area, whether it's
DeKalb.
Rockford, DeKalb, or some
It's
near
about
that.
45 minutes away from Chicago, about
Yeah.
an hour or so away from Chicago. Not that far. So
Hmm.
you're in a diverse environment. It's not a predominantly black environment.
Yeah, not at all. Not at all.
So
Especially not when I got out here. Definitely
okay.
not.
So something is going on. It's between that Trayvon, Mike Brown, something is happening
Yeah.
big.
Yeah. So
And kids in the school are being racist, or
not necessarily racist, but like they were kind of targeting the police officers with negative comments. And I knew some of them just because of working with them. I knew them personally, and I knew that they wanted to support the students, but they weren't able to because students seeing the uniform, they immediately go to those negative feelings. So they never really had that opportunity. So what I did was I worked with my school administrator, and I was like, hey, I see these police officers in this light, the students to see them in this light. So how we could bridge that gap is maybe we can have these officers take off their uniforms, engage in an activity that the students can see them in a different light. And so we ended up putting a basketball game together. So the police officers versus the teachers and administrators and things. So police officers versus staff. We ended up, the mission to get into that game was a toy, and it was during the holidays. So we donated those toys to Toys for Tots. So for families who needed toys during the holidays, they got those. And then, all the audience got to watch us play against the police officers. And, that brought a nice decrease of, negative attitudes towards police officers. And after that situation, it ended up being an annual event. So seeing that impact that I had just coming up with an idea, I'm like, man, that's pretty cool, but in order to get that into play, I had to clear with all these administrators. So one of the administrators was like, why don't you just become administrator? And I was like, man, that's a great idea. So then that's when I challenged myself to a higher degree and joined my, jumped into a master's program for educational leadership.
wow. Talk about the Diz Wiz series. What is that, and how did it come about?
All right, so the Diz Wiz series is a social emotional learning series. It's basically a series of children's books that school counselors and social workers can utilize when they're working with groups. So how the series came about was, as a school counselor, I started to develop themes. What are these students coming to my office for? And once I developed those themes, I realized like no matter where I went, those themes were always prevalent. So I took the 8 common themes that I just kept seeing over and over again, and I started putting them into publications. And then what I was gonna do is, since it's the Diz Wiz series, there's gonna be a total of 8 publications. In addition to that, 2 workbooks, because typically groups run 6 to 8 weeks. So as a school counselor, I was always piecemealing 5 different resources, and then having to compile it to create my group curriculum. So that was exhausting. So I'm like, man, I'm pulling from 8 different sources just to come up with one group curriculum. So how about I do this? I come up with these publications, and then I have workbooks aligned with these publications. So all you have to do is just purchase these publications and the workbooks, and you got 6 to 8 week groups right there on 8 of the most hot topics that you're gonna probably experience as a school counselor or a social worker.
Wow, that's phenomenal. And where can so um if a school leader, because this platform is in over 100 countries, right, around the world. If a
Mhm.
school leader wants to tap into the Diz Wiz series, where can they find it? Where can they get in touch with you? And how do you recommend that they interact with it?
Yeah. Well, you can go to the DizWizSeries.com. You can go to Barnes and Noble. You can go to Walmart.com, Target.com, Amazon. They all have the publications. The
Wow.
first workbook on the first four publications is coming out in January. So now you got all the SEL activities aligned with the publications all in one package. That's just volume one. Because, like I said, we're going to do 8. So that's the first set. And then the second set is going to be coming. And you're going to have volume 2 with the workbook. But you can
Phenomenal,
all
brother.
major platforms.
Phenomenal. Yeah, man. That's super, super dope. Hey, let's dig into the meat, man.
Mhm.
What's from your perspective? And by the way, before hey, all of his contact information will be in the show notes. If you all want to connect with him, you'll be able to click on him and find him on Instagram and his website and all that good stuff. What's working for you in education, Rheon? Like, what do you think is dope about education today?
Man, the dopest thing that I think about when it comes down to education is the fact that everybody plays a student. You know, most students come to school and they look at their teachers as like, they are the professionals, they are the masters of their craft. But in order to be a teacher, you never have to forget you can never forget what it feels like to be a student. So knowledge is always ongoing, so you got to constantly be ascertaining new knowledge. And that's the beauty of education. There's never going to be a time when change isn't present, or knowledge, you can't learn something new. So I just fell in love with just that ongoing cycle of just new knowledge. And then you start seeing levels of things like, intelligence is here, but then wisdom, is at a higher level, maybe looking at things more holistically. So it's just, to me, that's just the beauty of education, and the beauty of just how everything just works together in sync with one another. And
What
all the things you can apply to, your life that's going to benefit you, whether it's coping skills or whether it's financial skills. Learning knowledge really is power. And I see a lot of people who may have money, but if you don't have the knowledge of managing that money, you're not going to be successful and you're not going to have longevity. And that's what I think knowledge and education really gets you. It gets you that longevity component that really, helps you out in the long term.
phenomenal, phenomenal. Man, you are opening up a lot of questions for me that I have for you as a African American male educational leader. But
Mhm.
what are some of your challenges, your biggest challenges around education, and things that kind of frustrate you?
I'm just gonna be transparent. I'm a transparent person. I try to be open and honest at all times. The biggest thing that frustrates me is sometimes hypocrisy in education. And what I mean by that is this:
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we address people like we don't want to be addressed. And I'll
Mm-hmm.
give you an example of that. If I'm a building leader and I have a staff meeting, and you walk into my staff meeting late, you would like me to continue with the meeting, to keep going. You wouldn't want me to spotlight that situation. You would want me to follow up with you on a one-to-one basis. But sometimes there's going to be, if you're at an elementary school, you got a little 8-year-old that doesn't even drive. And if they come into your class late, some people may respond by chewing into that 8-year-old. Oh, why are you late? School starts here. Now, if you wouldn't want me to address you like this, then I want you to have that same level of empathy with the students as well. So, and then also, what I see is sometimes as a teacher, you may be a little less willing to step out of your comfort zone, but we ask students to step out of their comfort zone every day,
Wow.
learn new math concepts, implement new coping skills, whatever it may be. So we can't be closed-minded and not willing to step out of our own comfort zones. And after all, outside of your comfort zone is where growth really exists.
Yeah, man, that's amazing insight. It's the first time I heard someone respond with that in this section of the podcast, brother. So that's real
Yeah.
heavy, man. So you
And it
just
really has like a
hypocrisy.
huge impact on me just being a black male, because when you're talking about certain things like restorative practices, you're talking about equity and inclusivity and things like that. And when you start talking about everybody succeeding, sometimes you can see certain mindsets aren't necessarily geared towards embracing those new
Mm-hmm.
concepts. They may want to hold on to how things have traditionally been done and not want to embrace to maybe more effective methods to obtain what they really want. Because if you really want this student to be successful, then sometimes we got to step out of our box to make sure that student gets what they need.
Yeah. I want to ask you about that, being a black man in education,
Hmm.
educational leadership. Why do you think that there's so few black men in education?
Man, that's a real loaded question because it's very multifaceted, you know. Um, and at one point, I could just feel like that when you go through. I know me personally. I'm thinking of my high school years. 99, I say 98% of my teachers were white. The only and I say that to say this. 98% of my teachers were white. I had a 3.4 GPA. So you know what that means? All those teachers saw those papers getting turned in with above average grades on it. None of those teachers had a conversation with me that said, hey, and connected anything that I was doing to post graduation. The only person that did that was an African American woman who was my school counselor. You know, you don't even see your school counselor that often. At least, you know, I didn't in high school, you know, and so I think that sometimes that those relationships aren't built to foster, the support so they want to get into education, and and then also if they don't see themselves represented in their teachers, if you don't see yourself in it, then you might not see that's an option for you to become. So that's why I like, when I go into certain buildings now and I see African American students and they're like, oh, especially when you have a leadership role and they look at you like, you can see the inspiration in their eyes. So I think we need to have that a lot more often so we can encourage more to join, the platform. And we definitely have a huge need for it because I can't tell you, majority of times I look at the office discipline referrals, it's majority written on the minority. And I can't count how many times I sat in my office and I'm looking across my desk at someone that just reminds me of me. But when they go to the classroom, the teacher may not see themselves in that student for cultural reasons, for whatever it might may be. They don't see that themselves in that student, and because of those differences, I'll give you an example because that can sound kind of complex, and like I said, it's loaded, so I want to make it as simplistic as possible and provide clarity for those who may be listening. But say for instance, if I'm a teacher and in my household, this is the level that we speak to one another when we talking and when we greeting each other, but when I go to class, this person's where they come from, they talk to each other a lot higher in tone. To me, that could be disrespect. Because in my household, people talking at that volume, that's disrespect. That's, they're not taking into consideration everybody else around them. In their household, they're just communicating. So if I'm grading you off my rubric, you're gonna always fail. That's just like judging a fish climbing a tree. If you judge somebody on somebody else's rubric, they're never going to be successful. So being able to be malleable, establish relationships, and be competent in multicultural skills is huge when it comes to educating all students. And that's something that's near and dear to my heart. That's why if you look at my publications, they rooted in diversity. I'll give you an example. Diz Wiz Hungry Charlie, right? You've seen Feed the Children commercials, right?
Yeah.
I've never seen one Feed the Children's commercial where they had an African American helping white kids, ever. So that's what I did. In that publication, we flipped it. We got an African American young man helping a white young man obtain community resources, you know, and we talk. So you can have those deep conversations about it because if we don't see yourself in a leadership role or in a position where you can give to others, then you're only seeing yourself in the media reflected as being having to be, having someone give you something, then that might be how you start to see yourself. Like, I don't have a leadership role. I just got to take a passive role in life and just, people are going to give me handouts. No, no, that's not how it works. We got to see ourselves in these positions, and then that comes just like if you look at Congress or Senate, when I go to, sometimes I'm not even gonna lie, I go to conferences sometimes and I look to the right of me and I look to the left of me and I see a sea of white. I'm the only black. So I had to get comfortable being
Mm.
only one of me and constantly being outside of my comfort zone wherever I go. And, that just made me intrinsically sound. And I want to make a lot of other people intrinsically sound as well.
That's phenomenal, brother. And that's a great segue. Yeah, that's a lot of clips I can, we can chop up off of what you just said that are going to enlighten other than make others more aware. You definitely simplified it and made it digestible. Well, it's a great segue into this final question. Like, what do you think the future of education kind of looks like from your perspective? Like, set it up for us.
Honestly, I don't know what it's gonna look like with COVID. That uprooted everything in regards to like how school is done. I know a lot of people are thinking about virtual options. I know a lot of people are thinking about, in person. To me, I just want to simplify it down to just the core concepts. I want the first thing to do is to build relationships with your students, because I've never seen a student graduate a school, then come back to that school to talk about how that assignment or that test changed their life. But I have seen students talk about how that teacher changed their life. I got a counselor story because of someone established a relationship. So I'm huge on relationships. I'm huge on making sure that we're partnering with parents and that we're working together and we're trying to streamline norms so we can, derail these the overrepresentation of certain groups in the referral process. So long story short, just to kind of answer your question, I want education to focus on SEL. I want academics and SEL to be in sync, because you could be a 4.0 student, but if you get upset and punch somebody in the mouth every time you're mad, you could be flawless academically, but your social emotion is going to keep you from seeing, your pinnacle of success. So I would like to see them go hand in hand.
Is there anything that we haven't talked about, or you wanted to make sure you communicated before you got out of here today?
Yeah, one thing I would like to say, and I'm not trying to do a shameless plug or anything.
No, it ain't shameless, brother. You here for that? I want to plug it. Plug away.
But what I want to say is that I've been a school counselor. I've been in the trenches. I know the themes for which students are coming down to your offices for, and I understand the difficulty in having a piecemeal, because there's not a lot of SEL curriculum out there. There's not a lot of group where you could buy this and boom, I got my group going and we ready, And so for any school counselors who may be new to the profession or who may be veterans in the profession and you still just need some resources, then the DizWiz series is going to serve that. Not only do we serve an educational and social emotional purpose, but we also have that social justice and that diversity component in there, just to make sure that all students are able to see themselves reflected in the curriculum and what they read, and they're able to see themselves in leadership roles embedded within that reading, not just a character or supporting character within that literature component.
No, that's super, super dope. And so again, all the show notes, all of your contact information will be there for people to connect with you, to tap into you, to follow up with you. So yeah, that's super dope. We'll make sure that happens. So look, man, we're wrapping up. It's time. It's almost time to get out of here. But before we go, this is brand new to the podcast. Podcast now has a sponsor. Pool. Poolofmusic.com is our sponsor. I'll tell you a little bit about Pool. So I am the founder and CEO of a company called Genius Lab, where we help young people, middle school through high school, focus on career opportunities in technology and business, right? And some of our students built from scratch a music streaming platform. And so what I want to do is I want to highlight a song off of that platform and people can tap into it. But what I really want to do is I want to play a snippet of a song and I want your feedback. I want to know, without anything, just what you think about it. So I'm going to share the screen now. You're looking at it. Full of music. And then we're going to play a song from an artist called H2O. And just a little bit. Let's play a little bit of Old Man. So here we go.
blocking my zen. They think they blocking my wins. They on the opposite end. Sometimes the opposites your friends. This here is not for pretend. I'm thinking about copping the biz. I just be saving my dough. Actively saving the hood. Got no time for saving these hoes. I might just marry the game. As far as sanctity goes, light up some dank in this bitch. Shots, flash, bank in this bitch. I flow a river, put bank on it. Ayy, something so pure you could dream from it. Ayy, I used to pray for this, dream of this. Now I'm the one that they sleeping on them. Low key the swagger so secretive. But every time I speak, I'm leaking it. Ay, jump out the gym, you can't leap with them dudes. Don't even jump, you get put on the post. That might buy me some ice cause I.
What you think, Rheon? What you think of that, man? Just what you heard a little bit, man. What you think about that, man?
You know, I think that if they had it mixed and mastered a little bit better, I'll be able to understand it. I mean, not understand it, but digest it a little bit more. I would like to see more artists do some unique things, man, because when I was growing up, I remember Outkast, Goody Mob, you know, Busta Rhymes. Everybody had their own individual style. And now I'm just kind of seeing more new artists wanting to be like the newer artists that are already out, you know. So just based on what I'm hearing, you know, it sounded like a lot of the things I've heard before, just stated differently. But I think the mixing and mastering of it, I get the sound quality where it needs to be. But I think if they provide a new layer of just uniqueness, they'll set themselves apart, and they might even be creating their own new lane, and people start flocking to that. So I would, you know, encourage them to keep going, keep trying, work on that mixing and mastering, and then do something unique.
Awesome, man. This is the first time we've ever had this segment to our show. We're kind of testing it out. I appreciate that feedback. And H2O, you heard it from somebody who ain't got no skin in the game, and that's this feedback. And that's the purpose of the platform. So thanks to our sponsor, Pool, for allowing the music to be heard today in support of dope people. Rheon Gibson, educational leader from Texas to Illinois and the Rockford, DeKalb area. Thank you for joining us on Dope People today. You have been absolutely amazing. We're glad to know you and now be potentially friends with you going forward, brother. Thank you for inspiring so many young people, especially other African-American young men who need to see people that look like you in leadership.
Yes, sir.
So that's all we have for today. You already know what it is. Until next time, everybody. Peace.